Welcome back to the final interview of tonight. With me now, we have James Harding, also known as Too Good, esport veteran, games veteran, studio owner, everything and a bit more. And you've been playing for a while, although it's been a bit iffy as you've been going in and out of games. But what's your first take of the game? You played some yesterday too, so you actually got gameplay in it.
Yeah, it was. I mean, honestly, first take of it, it was pretty fun. Like, I know I'm brought in from an esports side of things, but outside of, we're talking about esports for the game. But yeah, it was fun. I'm obviously actually amazing at the game. I was actually the best in the studio. Tabes was here, but he was looking for a console and a joystick to play on because he's a bit of a noob. But I came in, sat down, headshots everywhere, and in fact, I didn't think there was a server problem, actually. I just thought I was headshotting people and they were just disconnecting because they were like fed up of being on the server. I thought it was like World of Warcraft Hunter disconnect shot. I thought you guys implemented that. That was one of my traits. So yeah, I thought I was just doing great and really pissing people off. But apparently it was server problems. But I think it's just me, actually.
So everyone who's mad at that knows it's James who causes the server problems. It's good to know, good to clear up. So you have a lot of experience with games like BLC and games where skill is advertised as being the main concept of the game. Do you feel this is something similar because we're going for a very skill-based game, or can you feel like your skills transfer over here?
Well, I mean, talking about War of Roses as a competitive game, you have to look at it on different levels. The first thing is you've got the in-game combat skill, okay? So you can say like, all right, my bowman and my longbowman, obviously that's like a very obvious skill shot. If you're going to go into a competitive game playing those characters, like that's really what's going to be much more interesting. It's in terms of how you manage to take your objectives, how many longbowmen and crossbowmen you want to bring into the server as your team, what positions you want to take with these, as strategical. And the people that get addicted to the game are going to be the guys that really show us how skillful and how usable those are in terms of characters to play. But obviously, you've got a very simple skill shot which comes from FPS, which is every time you shoot something skill-based long range, you have a chance of missing, and that makes it incredibly skillful. But you don't at the same time have something which is much more familiar with FPS gaming, which is the twitchiness of it. Because if you play something, Tabes was here from Call of Duty, where everything's just that one clean shot, and crossbow as well is a little bit faster, it seemed, right? Yeah. But it's you have more time to line up the shot, and in some ways each shot then becomes more important, which is quite good in a skill-based game, especially for entertainment-wise when you're playing, because the more important that moment becomes, it's like waves of entertainment, like when you're running just around the map, the wave is low on entertainment, and when you're proning to get a long-range shot and you hit, the wave is high, and you can't have a game entertainment-wise which is either constantly high or just middle ground. So it's good to have those like waves of entertainment. In terms of the melee-based combat, that also seems to me much more of a meta game to start with. Meta game, if you know anything, the term, it's like StarCraft 2. Meta game is just pretty much stuff outside of the core skill. It's what you're doing, why you're doing it. And with the meta game of the melees, it does seem that it's a lot on decision base going in and figuring out, okay, what armors do I want? What traits do I want? What weapons do I want? Who are my opponents meant to be? Who do I want to fight? Who do I don't want to fight? But again, even though it's an FPS and it's, of course, third person, the combat system is one of the things that I would say honestly, one of the things that I think that could have a higher level of kind of entertainment. Because when I play longbowman and I do an amazing shot, which is every shot, but for you guys, when you do one after a few years of playing as good as mine, it's like it's a really good feeling, right? But when I go into like melee combat and I'm like, okay, there's a lot in there that maybe I don't understand yet in terms of like some of the meta and some of the parrying and fast counterattacks, but it seems that the traits maybe lead that, because otherwise, so I would like to see improvements on the melee side. But I basically played the longbowman open and disconnected shot people. So skill based, yeah, it definitely has it, but the community will decide how far that goes on skill base. When I don't know how big is your tournament? No, not tournaments, but competitive gaming meant to be. I mean, I know you got servers with what 64.
64 is max,
Yeah. So what are you looking for the community to kind of? I mean, obviously they're going to decide because they're play the game in a way that they'd be like, oh, 12v12 around these maps has the best gameplay. So we would like 12v12 leagues and tournaments if they're going to go in the esport direction. But what do you guys think in terms of size?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would say maybe 8v8 makes sense because you wouldn't want to be too crowded. And as you said, if you have 8v8, 10v10, something kind of small like TF2.
Nah.
You don't feel that?
No, I think you're wrong. You work here, right?
Yes.
Oh, Jesus. Okay. So
The
thing is,
that question better because he works on the game.
the thing is like, okay, so when you have a competitive game, you've got all the mechanics that you built in, and they're skill based. Okay, it's the maps are really going to decide what makes it competitive. Like, people underestimate when they develop a game how important maps are to shape the gameplay around the mechanics and the design of what's actually gone in. And when you look at esports, you look at like, okay, you got Battlefield, that's quite a big game, and you got this stuff. But like War of the Roses, if it wants to go in an esport direction, the community will decide if it does. The community will then decide how big they prefer playing on which kind of scale, and naturally they will, if they're interested in competing against each other, which they probably will. People have a misconception that esports is everything that's at Internet Extreme Masters, MLG, and whatever. It's actually just people who enjoy competing in leagues. Maybe there's prizes, maybe there's not, but that is what esports is in its core essence. So they'll decide on the sides, and I think it would actually be more unique to have the competitive side of it in a larger scale than 8v8. I think 8v8 will not play fast enough. Because if you look at Battlefield and how fast that is in comparison, because obviously they're running around with guns and you know, we're here with crossbows, bows, swords, and you know, and polearms. So the battles would have to be larger. Yeah, because I think the gameplay would work out better then. Because then you'd have so much more of a meta game in deciding how many archers you're going to bring, how many, you know, swordsmen, footsmen, cavalry, etc. And you'll be changing up constantly based on objectives. But it's the community decide. It's going to be way larger in 8v8. It has to be.
It's going to be extremely hard to get that going because if you look at, say, Battlefield, they still have, you know, they have potential to go up to 64, but they never do because it's so hard to organize such a large-scale esport.
The speed of Battlefield is fast enough that each individual player within Battlefield, because it's a faster-paced game, has more importance on them, and they, as one player, they can do quite a lot. If you're playing like you, right, with your stupid spec, whatever you had like a big stick, bit of metal on the end, right, and you were chopping down Yorkshiremen, but the ability for that scenario to occur was because there was a good amount of players. If you're 8v8, you think 3 people are going to stand opposite you while you've got a big, you know, there's objectives in there, and then it comes down to the map design. But maybe if you design the maps well enough, 8v8, it could go 8v8 way. But I personally think it would have to be bigger.
I just grabbed that from there. I mean, I don't work directly with the game. That was just my guess, my feeling, because I feel when I play more melee, and I feel that, you know, you can actually have a fight between 2 people that's interesting. But if you get too many people in one fight, it's going to become one big, you know, clusterfuck. Excuse my language.
Yeah, maybe.
That's just my vibe. But as you said, the community will decide. So they might go 2v2, who knows? Or they might go 32 versus 32. You will never know.
Yeah, but I wouldn't be surprised if people will start up their own sites, and you'll probably have like the best way to I feel to build a community to go towards is actually to build clans that have an over amount of people involved. So you're not looking at like esport teams where you're like, these are our 8 players. It's more like, here's a clan. We have a roster of 50 people. We're going to be part of this community that challenge other clans, or, you know, whatever you want to call them. And from those 50 people, we can guarantee that we'll be able to bring 16, 24 and do different team sizes. But again, it does come down to the maps. So, because it's mentioned esports quite a lot, right? I read a review, and someone at the end of the review was like, "I would really like to see War of Roses become an esport game." What do you think of that?
Well, I mean, esport is an incredible buzzword right now, so I think
That's the problem. It's hot shit.
it is very hot shit. And I mean, what is esport? As you said, it's kind of people look at esport as League of Legends or StarCraft or Counter Strike. Okay, League of Legends is not even a real game in my opinion, but okay.
That's very rude. That was from Paradox Interactive officially. If you're listening, Ryan.
But I mean, it's a game where people will compete. I absolutely do not think
There's very
that.
little emphasis on single player, right? I mean, what's the single player in this game?
It's a training mode where you get to learn stuff. So there's no single player. It is multiplayer.
No, don't quit the interview. This is going great.
He wants us to finish off. So just what I was going to say is that if we look at Warband, which is a very similar game, which a lot of people playing come over here, it's kind of what you said. You have really big clans that kind of just mash it out in big games. So if that is your prediction, that might be very true.
Yeah, but like, what does War of Roses want to achieve as an esport? I mean, what kind of development features are going in there? What kind of community support? Like, where do they see themselves? Where do you see yourself fitting as an esport game, War of Roses? I mean, I've had my opinion in terms of much more of a community website. I mean, it might not even make it to like ESL because it's so big, but the community will find each other if you give them the support and the tools to do so, even on forums or something like that. So where do you see War of Roses fitting as an esport?
Well, I see it taking kind of the same place as Warband, but bigger. It's a very community-driven esports because I think the tools are in the game. I think it has a high enough skill cap to actually be an esport
When
game.
you say tools are in the game, what tools are they? Is it like a matchmaking tournament system or?
I mean more like as in the skill cap of the game, as the personal players can have a very high cap. It's not like rock, paper, scissors where it's the same thing every time. But as Matt actually signed, he wants us to finish off the interview. So,
Matt, this is my only interview today, Matt. And then normally, if you speak to my agent, me, hour minimum.
It would be nice though if you let John do the interview.
Well, no, I like asking questions, dude, because it's like it's not only my opinion. It's like I want to know little things about, like, if I see this game at DreamHack and like where do I find the community, what kind of support do they have, and that's always interesting. Sorry, John, if I asked you too many questions.
no, there's no problem.
Would you like to come for a beer later? Is that an okay question?
I'd love to come for a beer.
Let's do a whiskey instead.
I don't drink whiskey though.
You can't come.
I'm sorry. All right. So final question. In the end, did you have fun playing?
Yeah, because that was awesome. But it was actually fun. I was actually taunting people to myself, basically talking ye olde English, come hither. I was pretty upset at some situations, though, because I didn't know how to handle them. There was a guy in a corner with a fucking shield, and I was there with a sword, and he just had his shield up, and I was like, this is not going well. So I called my mates over, and there was about 6 of us trying to kill the guy with the shield, but it turned out we were just hitting each other, attempting to. So it was like this Imber strategy that this shield man came up with. I think it was ingenious. So we just left him to it and had some tea, and like good Yorkshiremen.
Amazing. So that will be it from us. We're going back to Matt, who is bringing up something. He looks very amused over there. But thank you, James, for the very dual-sided interview.
Yes, thank you, John, for being interviewed as well. It's been the pleasure is all yours.